This is a DrumWise Meets, and today I'm here with Ralph Rolle. Hi, Ralph.
How you doing, Tom? What's going on?
What age did you get into drums, and what bands or artists inspired you when you first started playing?
I got into drumming when I was around 8 years old or so. My brother was actually the drummer in the house. One day I came home and there was a drum set in our room, and I just did it because he did it. And my early influences, one of the first influences was Ringo Starr. Ringo Starr was a big deal to me because I saw him when I was a young kid playing on the Ed Sullivan Show, uh, and he just looked like he was having so much fun. And that was my earliest influence was Ringo Starr. Yeah.
And what was your first drum set?
The first drum set that I owned was a Ludwig Wieselite kit, clear. It didn't have any color to it. It was a leftover from a order at a music store that I volunteered to just clean up because that's where the drums were, and it sat there for a long time. So the owner gave me like what it cost him, and my mother told me if I raised the money to get the drums, then she'll buy the cymbals. And that was my first kit. I was around, I was just around 18, 17, 18, somewhere around there.
Cool. What a great first kit to have. I've got a clear Vista Light. It's great.
Yes, yeah. I don't have that kit anymore because I was playing in an after hours spot in New York in the Bronx, and the night after we played, sometime that week, because it was only open on the weekends, when the after hours spot started at like 4 a.m. So I would do a gig usually in Harlem at one of the clubs like the Baby Grand or the Mark IV or Calls Off the Corner, pack up, and then go to an after hours spot and play until the sun came up actually. So there was a raid at that club because it was an illegal club and there was a lot of drugs that went on. And they padlocked the place and it stayed padlocked for many months. And when it reopened, it opened as a legal club. And when I went in, my drums were there. And I told the guy, yeah, I'm a kid. I said, sir, those drums are mine. And he just looked at me. He said, no, they're not. And that was that.
Oh, oh no! What a way to lose your drum set. Oh man.
Yeah, true story.
I believe we all evolve as drummers as we get older, and we take on different influences as we grow. But that said, question that I would find hard to answer here: if you had to pick just one, who would be your all-time favorite drummer?
Oh, that's not. It's so funny because about 10 drummers just popped into my head, but I guess my all-time favorite drummer would be Steve Gadd.
Mhm.
And right like next to him, like if I could like make Siamese triplets, it would be Steve Gadd, Harvey Mason, and Bernard Purdy would be my top favorites, and Clive Stubblefield. So now we have
Yeah, yeah.
a quadruple of twin. Yeah, all of those guys just had groove and understanding of where to play inside. But Steve Gadd, he kind of brought it all together for me. As far as his ability to be universally great. I could go on. I mean, there was so many, but as far as like if if I had to spend the rest of my time on an island with my favorite drummer, Steve would be very upset because he'll be on the island. Where you going, Steve? Where you going? No, stay.
Excellent. Now, possibly another difficult question. What's been the highlight of your career so far?
One of the biggest highlights is when I got the job at the Apollo Theater. Um, that was huge. That's that's actually huge for a lot of not just drummers, but musicians, singers, performers. When you get a chance to play on the Apollo Theater stage, it's very intimidating. And I ended up staying there for 17 years, which was amazing. Great friends, great relationships. Ups and downs, ins and outs. But the Apollo Theater is at the top of the list.
When you first get a gig with a new artist, obviously you've played with lots of different people over the years. How do you learn the material? So do you just listen and then it's just in your head and you just know it, or do you listen and then do a bit of transcription, or has it ever happened where someone said, oh Ralph, here's the entire show in this folder right here, all written out in drum music for you, here you go away and learn all the dots?
Well, the good thing is that that's never really happened on that scale. Only a couple of times, and it's very frustrating when someone gives you a drum chart when all the notes are written out, because it leaves no room based on when you see that to your own personal expression and feeling. But the majority of the times that I've gotten gigs, it's been all about starting from the beginning, getting a cassette tape. And that was it. They wanted you to learn the songs either as they were recorded in the studio or as they were recorded in a live setting. And luckily, when I was very young, I taught myself how to read music. Just I thought it would be very, very important. What you hear in the back is a new puppy we have. And when I tell you this oh, he's bad. I have a very big dog that's 172 pounds, and we have a puppy that's about 2 pounds, and he's bad. So sorry about that.
It's all right.
It's okay, Mama. It's okay. So, yeah, most of the gigs that I've had, I have a technique of wanting to know the music from from the performance side of what was done before me, from the actual recording side of what I didn't play on, and trying to give the best interpretation of all of those, the musical director and the artist, without so much trying to be out front. What I mean by that is this: when you're learning someone else's music, it's not stuff that you've written. It's important to understand that you're doing an interpretation of song, of a book that's based on what someone else uh, has either heard or performed to before you. In most situations, unless you're in there from the ground up. So my technique, I'll use Nile Rodgers as an example. Right before me, the long-standing drummer was Omar Hakim. So when I got the gig, I got it from Nathaniel Townsley. Amazing players, both of them in their own right, different types of players. I grew up listening to Chic and loving Chic and wanting to be a band member of Chic back when Tony was there, when the band broke up, when they auditioned to put the band back together. And I do that in quotes because it wasn't necessarily an audition for the drum chair. Omar had the gig, and they were just auditioning just to let people know that Chic was coming back. But I didn't know that at the time. So I was like, I want to get in on the audition, but no one really knew who I was. So when I did get the call from Nathaniel, he was playing with Joe Zawinul and couldn't play a particular show. And he was, at the time, the interim drummer. They were looking for someone permanent. So I take the call. They send me Chic Live in Montrose, which is on DVD. What I did is I listened to that. I transcribed everything that was played in the show because they pretty much did the show just like that. And then I listened to all of the original recordings for the interpretation as Tony did it, because you have the live performance and then you have the Tony performance, and now you have to find a happy blend and marriage between the grooves. And what I try to tell drummers all the time is, depending on the type of genre that you're in, it has nothing to do with you. You're it's all about the music. So you have to access that part of you to be humble enough to understand that it's not like, oh, I'm going, nah, forget that, I'm going to play it like this. No, I don't care if that song was platinum, I'm going to play it. No, I don't like that groove, I'm going to play my groove. Well, that's not how it goes, in my opinion. That, I humble myself to the music, to the recordings, and my preparation is always about how do I access the sounds that people heard, the sounds that people were familiar with, and what do you do live not to throw people off. So you start doing different stuff. As you know, you're a drummer. Drummers lead the band. We are the leaders of the band. If we don't play the groove right, everyone doesn't groove correctly. If we start the tempo too fast or too slow, it changes the color and the palette of what you're doing. So all of those things come into account, and I don't know if people know how much, that aren't drummers, how much pressure that is for us. But you got to do all of those things that I just mentioned. Do all the studying, try to get it right the very first time, and make it look easy.
Excellent.
Those are the secrets.
Yeah, what a great answer. I love that. Awesome. Yeah, really nice
Thank
answer.
you.
And totally with you there.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
absolutely. I think there's these days, I think a lot of the youngsters are, they're just into chops and, how fast they can play. And that's all great, of course. But I think sometimes they miss the point slightly. The music.
Okay. So now that we're on the subject, there are different approaches. There is there's the clinician approach, there's the chop approach, there's the clinician chop song appreciation approach, and then there's the it's all about me approach. And I there's no particular order, but what you're saying when you when you're saying that, like, okay, whether or not I have a lot of chops, most times people will never know it. And the reason why I say that, because it's not necessary for what I play. If I was in a fusion band or whatever type of, you get what I'm saying,
Yeah.
then I would have to access that information for that music. But 90% of my entire career has been about accessing a feel-good groove.
Mm-hmm.
Really. And it's taken me all around the world to work with so many different artists, like a Gadd or a Purdy or a Harvey Mason, because it's all about making the end user the simplicity of feeling good from that simplicity performance standpoint, if you know what I mean. And again, I'm saying it the way I'm saying it because I'm not trying to say other drummers are whatever. No, listen, Simon Phillips is one of the baddest dudes for what he does. Akira Jimbo. I mean, El Negro. I could go on and on and on. These are bad brothers. They're all bad. But it's about accessing the right information for what the audience is asking for. It's a humble place. But what you're saying is that some of these younger cats out here are blurring the lines on what's necessary and needed, is what you're saying. And now that you're older and younger than me, you're understanding that, and you teach, you get it, that for some, I call it Cadillac syndrome. That's what I gave it that name. Cadillac syndrome is when you forget that you're playing a song and you try to get people to look at you driving by. You just forget, you
Yeah.
know. And what happens is that you're not allowing yourself musically to grow. In my neighborhood, there were guys that had the baddest cars. I mean, Porsches, Cadillacs, all kind of stuff, but they still lived in the projects. So they were showing something that they had, but they were using it without having a house. You, you
Yeah.
understand what I mean?
Yeah.
You have to come. You got to, you know, if you have a Porsche, it just makes sense to me that you have a really nice townhouse or something that you're going home to that makes sense to the Porsche that you have out on the street,
Yeah. Totally.
or or the Cadillac you have out on the street. It's just, don't be flashy just because you're trying to be flashy. Have a reason for it. Have a purpose and a standpoint.
Mm. Now, I've asked you about career highlights. We're going to kind of go to, you know, the other end of the scale here. But you know, if you've got any funny stories about, have you ever had anything go wrong on stage that you've had to recover from, whether it be equipment fail or brain fail?
I could tell you three that fit into that. The first one I'll tell you was, I was playing with Freddie Jackson, and it was about me starting the song. It was a drum intro, and I had the worst brain fart and I totally went to another song, and everybody in the band and Freddie turned around and looked at me like, and then I started it again the same way because I'm like, why y'all looking at me? This it was totally wrong. And then finally when it hit me, I was like, oops. So the other time I was playing with Nile Rogers, and this was in Hyde Park, and it was blistering hot out, blistering hot. And we went on stage and we started playing, and all of a sudden the sound just died. And you know, we're acoustic, so the only thing people can hear was the drums. So I had to play like a groove. The front of the house board fried in the heat. So
Wow.
they had to disconnect the entire board and plug it in, and I had to keep playing. Yeah, so that wasn't a brain fart, but I was like, okay, I'm just out here right now. I'm just here. So I guess I just got to keep doing something. In the very beginning of my career, when I first started, very first tour, I was working with a group called Musique, and they had a hit song called "Push Push in the Bush," which was a big disco hit at the time back in the '70s. And we were in Mexico, and the drum set that they had for me um, was old, and it was so old that while I was playing, the the kick started to do like this, and I didn't know why. What happened was is the drums were so old, and where they had the wood had rotted, and the the bass drum, the stand for the bass drum literally just broke completely off into the wood. So now I'm playing the song and holding the drums at, you know, it was crazy. So those are the three. It was not cool. All those people out there and the drums are just going like this. You know, it's bad.
But the moral of the story is you managed to recover from all three events. So there we are.
Yeah, you get one of those oh crap moments a lot as musicians, but you just gotta, you know, sometimes the audience just doesn't know if it's still feeling good.
From stage mishaps to curveball questions, I've got two curveball questions for you here, Ralph. The first one of those is, what are your hobbies away from drums?
Sleep. Um, One of my hobbies, I love dogs, and my family we love dogs. It's my wife, my daughter, and we have two dogs. And Bosco has his own Facebook page. It's called Bosco the Bronx Dog. He's huge. He's really big, and he does whatever he wants. But he's the kindest, most sweet and gentle big mastiff you've ever met. I mean, when he's around, you cannot feel bad. And then his mate, we had an English bulldog named Tootsie, and she died suddenly. And he was fine for a minute. And then he got very sad. So we decided to get a puppy right around the holidays. And they picked out this puppy, which is a Bichon Frise and a poodle mix. And he's right here. He's I have never had a dog this bad in my he is a terror of a, you know, he steals everything and he hides it under my daughter's desk or, but he's cute. So you'll tell him to stop and he'll bark at you. That's one. And I love working in Photoshop. I find it very relaxing.
Yeah.
Other than the cooking stuff that people know about, I like sitting here on Photoshop and creating stuff. Or I used to, just for relaxation, if a person had a photo that needed work, I would have them give it to me and I would take out all the cracks and lines and kind of fix the color. It's on that art spectrum. My daughter's an artist too, and she does great stuff. I will show you one of her recent photos that she drew, but it's kind of that's what I like doing outside of playing drums.
Now, my next question is one that is very relevant to you, I think, and I haven't made this question up for you at all. But when I found out about this, I was like, oh my goodness, this question is perfect for you. So my biggest, most important question of the entire interview is, what's your favorite cookie?
Well, Soul Snacks Cookie Company, we bake a lot of different styles of cookies, not different styles, different flavors, because they're all drop cookies, Toll House type cookies. We have a sweet potato cookie that it's kind of like ridiculous. We sell a lot of them. But we just created a cookie. My wife she's become a mad scientist when it comes to baking. And she comes up with these ideas and I'm like a kid. I'm like, yeah, okay, yeah, let's do it. So she came up with a coconut milk chocolate toffee cookie. Coconut milk chocolate toffee. That is insanity. It's like I literally have to not eat them because if I see them, she doesn't notice. I will steal 2, 3, tuck it away, keep it for later. Those are the ones. We have 14 different flavors, and people seem to latch on to the cookies. But the big one for me is that coconut toffee and the sweet potato. Oh, we hopefully will be in the UK when this whole thing lifts.
Oh, yeah, right. Now you're talking.
Yeah, I've been working on it now for almost 2 years. What stopped it from coming is Brexit and COVID. 2 small things, nothing important.
Yeah, all at the same sort of time as well,
Yeah, exactly. So, luckily I have some level of patience because it would have driven me crazy as many times as we gotten close. I was on Sunday Brunch talking about it.
Oh,
and
cool.
They sampled all the cookies on Sunday Brunch and they loved them. We was talking about this coming soon, and then everything went crazy. So everyone's in a holding pattern.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. And how did you create the company, and how did it come about?
Well, it started with just loving, like most kids, loving food. My grandmother lived with my aunt, and they would bake when we would go over to the house. My mother baked when she was at home, and I just loved the whole process, the whole setup, the whole just attitude and emotion to when you're cooking and what it means. It's very much like music. It's a full repertoire of things that you need to get it right, different sensibilities and sensitivities that you have to do in order to get things to taste a certain way. I didn't realize that when I was a kid, But as I got older, I was like, oh, this is relatively the same type of thing. So I learned how to bake from watching them. And oddly enough, I was a shy kid. I was shy. I couldn't. All my friends could talk to girls. I couldn't talk to girls. I just didn't know what to say. I couldn't put it together. So I got the bright idea that if I knew a girl and I could just, hey, how you doing? I decided I'll give them some baked goods, like a cookie or a cupcake. You know, quite nerdy, but it worked. I mean,
Awesome.
so that's how it started because after my mother passed away, my production company was in my apartment, and I turned the room into a production room, her bedroom actually. It was only the right thing to do because she was such a vibrant and great person. Only good things could have come out of that room. And my guys would come over, Armando Colon and Gerard Harmon. And one day I just went in and said, I'm going to make some cookies. And they was like, what you talking about? So I said, no, I'm going to make some cookies. So I brought the cookies in the room and it was like, yo, this is a little weird that you grown man, you know, you're baking cookies until they tasted them. And then it was like, okay, you're going to have these every time we come through, right? Every week because you're going to have these cookies. So not so long after that, my girlfriend moved in and holiday time came around. We didn't have enough money to like buy gifts for 36 friends and family. So I said, well, let's just make the cookies. And she was like, brilliant. So we went downtown and we got these little 99-cent store tins, and we made the cookies, and we called them, at the time we called them ghetto cookies because I'm from the ghetto. So, you know, that was the cool, funny name that we came up with. We put a little card at Happy Holidays, and everyone called us back and said, these are really great. You should think about selling them. And that's how the whole thing got started. She eventually, her and I broke up, but she left. She didn't want to have anything. I was like, even if we break up, please stay with the cookies. But she didn't want to do that. So I tried to continue on by myself. Didn't work, excuse me. Then I met my wife totally by accident. And that was many years ago. So now we have a factory. We've had a store in Japan. We now bake for JP Morgan Chase. We sell tons of cookies in our restaurant. And Soul Snacks Cookie Company is the name. So if you want some, go to eatsoulsnacks.com. Yeah. And thank
Awesome.
you. I mean, it's all about the dream, man. I mean, listen, you're a drummer. You know that you probably got a lot of headwind when you started playing drums. Like, why do you want to do that? And you just kept going. And now you have your own studio. You have a wall behind you with your company name on it. You know, sometimes it's all about, you know, having a passion and believing in what you feel and not worried about what other people think.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So, and that's why I wanted to ask you about that, because it's just great to hear the story of it, and you know, and how you built it up from baking a few cookies for some friends. So there you go. You know. My question now is though,
Yeah.
did you, when you said you met your wife by accident, did you give her baked goods when you met her?
No, okay. So the way how I met her, which I don't tell the story a lot. Um, I was coming home one night from a gig and it was late. And I from the Bronx, I lived uptown in the Bronx, and she happened to be walking down the street not too far from the train station. And I'm going, okay, why is this woman walking by herself? And she's not American. My wife is Japanese. And I live in an all black neighborhood. So when I drove past, I went, I think she might be lost because it's like 3 in the morning and she's just got off the train. So I created this whole thing in my mind that she's thinks she's in Astoria, where a lot of Asians in Queens lived, in that part of Queens. So I stopped. I said, I rolled the window down. I said, "Excuse me." I said, "Please forgive me, and I'm not trying to be rude or anything, but I just really honestly want to know, are you okay?" And she stopped and she looked at me, like with suspicion, of course, because it's 3 something in the morning. And she said, "No, I'm fine. I live up the street." And right at that moment, I realized I racial profiled her. And then I started apologizing because of it. I just said, "Listen, I'm really sorry, but I just assumed you were lost. So please forgive my ignorance." And at that point, I'm like, "Well, I work with a lot of Japanese artists. You might know one. His name is Toshi Kubota." She said, "Oh, I know he's a big star in Japan." I've worked with him for years. And I said, "Please do me a favor. I'm going to give you my number. You can block it. Please do that. But just ring my phone. I'm not asking you to get in the car. I don't even want to know your name. I just would feel very comfortable to know that you got to your destination." She said, she looked at me, she said, "You know what? I'm going to do that." And she took my number. She blocked it. She called. I said, "Okay, fine. Whoever she is, that was my good deed for the day. She's home." So not too long, maybe about a week or so after, I get a phone call. Don't know the number. I answer the phone. She says, "Hello, do you know who this is?" And I could tell by the voice who it was. I said, "I think you're the woman from the other night." She said, "Well, I just want to thank you for stopping, because what you didn't realize is there were two guys coming across Gun Hill Road that were catcalling, whistling at me. And when you stopped, they left. So they made me very nervous." I said, "You see, so this was a good thing." So we both realized that we didn't live that far from each other. So we didn't talk a lot, but I would speak, and then if I was walking my dog, I would walk over and say hello. And then we went out. She asked me out to dinner, and that was a long time ago. So it's funny how things, just kind of happen. Yeah. So yeah, so she's my partner as far as the cookies are concerned. And when I go on the road, she runs everything, and she runs it much better than I do. She's really good at business and coordinating and being patient and taking care of stuff. So if you're listening,
That's a great story. I love that. That's awesome.
yeah.
Awesome. Now,
The great part is she invited me out to do it.
yeah. Oh, brilliant. Now, on to my last, kind of back to serious questions again after the curveballs. So, if you could give just one bit of advice to people starting out playing the drums, what would that be?
Listen to the masters, study, play with passion, and be humble to the music.
Simple. It's that simple.
Very, very. If you follow those few little things, it will get you a long way, and you will be a working musician. You teach, you already know that it's not about throwing your sticks up in the air and catching them on fire and doing a backflip just to hit a cymbal. It's about making your audience feel good. And if you can be humble enough to do that, then you'll work for the rest of your life.
So, Ralph, thanks so much for spending your time with us here at DrumWise today. It's been an absolute pleasure talking with you.
Tom, thank you for having me. And I hope to speak to you again soon. And stay safe out there.